So while we are waiting Chris to join, we have got lots of Chris here. What we'd like to do today is we'll start with a brief presentation. We'd like to make it very brief, just to give you an overview of the Kovair solutions. And we'll go into the product demo. And then after the product demo, we have got a pretty good idea of what we do. Then we'll open it up for a Q&A session, so that if you have any questions. Actually, I have with me Atanu. Atanu is our VP Engineering. So if you have any questions, especially about the architecture, implementation, he is the best person to answer those things. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, if we could maybe do a little background just on each one of you guys and what it is you cover over there first.
Okay, start. So Chris himself, I'm a TFS guy, so anything in the Microsoft stuff, but I've also worked extensively in my past with Quality Center, ClearQuest, ClearCase, Subversion, Clarity. I don't know, you name it. I've probably worked with it.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other?
Yes, I work with TFS a little bit, and also Jira and AppScan.
Last one?
AppScan is a application scanning tool for security.
Okay, understand. Okay, so I think everybody is in now. So let me share my desktop. See if you can see my screen there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Start. So the first question is, what is Kovair? So one way to look at Kovair is it is a box of a number of different applications, both in the area of application lifecycle managed ALM and the service management ITSM. So we have the individual tools like the requirements management, test management, etc. for the ALM and the incident change, service request, etc. in the ITSM area. And each application is actually delivered as a 100% browser-based web architected application. And we kind of compete with individual point tools in the market from Rational, from Blender, Micro Focus Now, etc. very well. We'll not focus on those tools today, as a matter of fact. The component is our process technology. So we have a task-based process technology called Omniprocess, using which you can create the multiple processes for each of the applications. So for example, for requirements management, you can create a process for review and approval, another process for implementation, another third process for change management. And all of these processes you create using our visual drag and drop dinner. With the demo, we will show this in a very, very brief way, in a very short way. Third component of Kovair is its integration technology we call Omnibus. It's an enterprise service bus architecture, and using web services, you can integrate any third-party vendor tool or your own internal applications. And since it uses web services, these two applications can be running anywhere in the world, running on any kind of platform, even behind a firewall. And this will be the focus of our demo today and all our discussion. And Kovair is also a platform, which basically means using Kovair you can create your own user-defined applications. And these applications are as powerful as any built-in applications. And the built-in applications are also created or configured using the same platform capability. Now, what's really great is that you actually configure these applications without writing a single line of code. Everything is just by drag and drop. And if I have time, actually, I'll show you how we configure the integration, for example, using the same kind of platform capability and drag and drop interface. And more, your user-defined applications can be process-enabled by Omniprocess, as well as you can integrate with other tools and applications using Omnibus, the integration technology. So, very clearly, what are the reasons we do the integration? First of all, we want to make the data visible from one tool to another, so to see what we are missing. So this is what we call the data plumbing, right? Now, we go beyond, much beyond data plumbing. Data plumbing is just maybe the 20% of everything. second is that whether we can create the traceability relations between the objects or artifacts which are in different tools, so that we can really do the change management across the whole ALM cycle from one tool, change in one tool, which actually triggered the impact in other tools. A process. So typically for each of these tools in ALM, the process is kind of limited or it just doesn't go beyond the boundary of the tool. So the question is to develop a process which cuts across all of these different tools, and we can try to achieve that.
Well, that guy, Jan is just dialing in now.
Okay, all right.
So she'll be online here.
Finally, whether we can have the dashboarding and reporting where we have the consolidated information from all different tools together in the context of each other as if they are all belongs to a single tool, so that there is no boundary, there is no difference between data coming from one tool from the other one. So you get a complete picture rather than all sorts of different jigsaw puzzles. So I find that there are three ways you can do the integration. One is by point-to-point integration, that is what most of the vendors do, and most of the, I would say, ad hoc integrations or internal integrations are done between two tools at a time, every other tool. Then you have the single vendor integrated tool. Take the large vendors like Microsoft, like IBM, they actually ask you to use their set of tools which are already pre-integrated in a particular way. So the advantage is, of course, you have got all those tools together working together based on vendor's own perception of how the integration should work. Problem is that, of course, you have to use their tools only. The tools are, if you already use the other tools, it's very difficult to integrate in that particular system. And the one is basically using the integration middleware, and that is where we come in. So we have this integration middleware called Omnibus, and using adapters for each different tools, we can create an ecosystem. So if the, and this one I'm pretty sure that both of you are very familiar with this. One is point-to-point integration, where you have an n square order of n square kind of number of integrations you need for every pair. And for ESB, Enterprise Service Bus, you just need one adapter at a time, which is order of n, when n is the total number of tools. This is a comparison of the three different ways we do the integration. I shared this presentation with you after this, so that we don't have to go through the list of all these things. But basically, I think know that over the last 20 years, the Enterprise Service Bus has become very, very popular in other industries. But unfortunately, in the ALM and ITSM, there is no Enterprise Service Bus middleware technology, and we are the first to bring it in. We don't claim that we have invented middleware. Middleware was there for a long time, and everybody understands the advantage of that. And one of the reasons that middleware came into existence is because of the problems in technology.
Just a second there, Sky. Jan, you online?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just wanted to sure.
No problem.
Thanks.
So this is what we will be showing in our demo today. So we have following tools kind of integrated for the demo. We have the Requisite Pro for requirements management. We have Eclipse and Visual Studio for coding. We're using TFS for configuration management, Quality Center for test management. I don't think we'll have time for doing the defect tracking, but if we have time, we'll show that also. And finally, the project management and reporting, all of those will show within Kovair. Though, to tell you frankly, you don't need Kovair for project management. You can actually replace it by another tool. In that context, Infosys is one of our big customers. They are using their own internal project management tool, so that you don't need actually Kovair interface to have any kind of end tool from Kovair. So even without Kovair, you can do integration of all these different tools. So possibly during the demo and after the demo, we can explain a little bit more on that particular subject. These are all these different adapters we have, as you can see, for every kind of function throughout the ALM lifecycle. We have got quite a few different options there, and typically it takes about 4 to 6 man weeks to create an adapter, provided, of course, we have the access to the tool and the API, etc. If you do not see a particular one here, we can create during that time. All right, so let's go to the product demo. So far. No. All right. So start from here. This is actually our Kovair website contact page. This is not the application. The reason I'm showing it, there is a link for customer requirement submission, right? So this example of integration, where you are integrating with your own internal portal or the intranet or corporate website. The reason you want to do that is you may have a set of users, say your employees or your customers, and that is true for many companies, as a matter of fact, who do not have direct access to Kovair, or as a matter of fact, any other tool. But you want to still capture their requests, their issues, their information, etc. So what you do, you can create a very simple web form like this one. And using our web service API, you can actually integrate with Kovair. Now, let me create a title here. So we'll call it customer request from Schwab. Let's call for Schwab from portal. Okay, and I'll put your name there. Okay.
I'll be your shill this morning.
Okay, and company, and let me also put this one as description. Let me make the priority high here. Okay, so let me save it. Now, since it uses web service, which basically means the server on which the application is running and the server on which this corporate website is running, they can be anywhere in the world, just using the internet. We are done here. So let's go to the application now. So this is a login page of Kovair. Now, one thing is very important, and I want to stress it here, is that Kovair is 100% web-based. As we all know, there are other tools also in the market which are typically client-server, and they may have a web interface, but typically that web interface is a little crippled. You cannot do everything using that web interface. Any kind of advanced operation or administration, you have to use their client desktop application. But in Kovair, we do not have a client application. Everything is browser-based, and we run on Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, etc. On, of course, Windows, Linux, Mac. All right. So what I'll do, I'll log in is as Mary. Mary is actually a requirements manager, kind of, or development manager you can think of. So when Mary logs in, it goes to Mary's home page, and the way she has set it up, that it goes to our dashboard. But before I go to the dashboard, let me show you different areas of the screen. So at the top, you have got a number of different tabs here. Okay, so these tabs are based on the selected workspace. So these are different workspaces, and each workspace is a kind of a sandbox for your security and sharing. So based on your need for security and sharing, you can configure individual workspaces. So one workspace for the whole organization, or a workspace per division, or a workspace per project, so depending on your kind of need. And for workspace, you can actually define a number of different entities. The entities, the way to look at it, are the objects or the artifacts in the particular workspace. Based on, again, the particular user's access right, you would be able to see these entities as tabs here. So for example, here we have the entities, projects, requirements, test cases, issues, change sets, subversion files, TFS files, TFS change sets. Up to TFS sets, these are the entities which are created for this workspace. But these are not all the entities. There may be other ones, but in this particular case, Mary has access to only those entities. Now, note here, the task is also is not an entity in Kovair. In Kovair, task is a built-in object. The other entities are kind of user-defined custom objects, and for every workspace, you can create different kinds of entities. Now, let's look at the dashboard here. Now, first of all, user can have access to multiple dashboards, and each dashboard can play a different role depending on the role the person is playing in number of different workspaces. You can even have a single dashboard cutting across multiple workspaces. So if I'm a QA manager for different workspaces, I can have just one dashboard about all the different workspaces together in a single dashboard. So the different gadgets, as you can see, they are pretty colorful ones. But it's really important. Two things are important to note here. First of all, these are not just a picture. You can, of course, right-click on that, save it as an image, and put it on your Word document or PowerPoint presentation, etc. But what's really important here is that these are all being calculated on real time. Which basically means the data you see here, all of these things, are up to the second. Okay, so these are not kind of populated or pre-generated images. That's number one. Number two, they're all active elements, active objects, which basically means, so in this case, let's say we have the requirements by type. This is kind of a pie chart, how many requirements you have of different types. So let's say there are 72 customer requirements. So if I click on that, as a matter of fact, opens up a pop-up window where we have all those 72 requirements which really correspond to that particular element in that graph. So for example, if I can sort it this way, I have the last one I just submitted from my Portal website, right? The customer request for Schwab from Portal, right? The same one we just submitted. And so the point I'm trying to make is that you have access to all of those elements directly from the dashboard when you drill down. And from here itself, you can go to the individual item also, okay? So the dashboard, we'll actually come back to the dashboard later when we talk about more on the reporting and dashboarding. Now, go to the...
Mike, Chris, just wanted to let you know, if you guys have any questions as Sky is going through this, feel free to go ahead and interrupt and ask your questions so we can get it taken care of right then and there as he goes along here, okay?
Okay.
This is the task page here. Now, let me discuss a little bit about the task in Kovair. So Kovair is a task-based system, which basically means that you can have multiple tasks. They are all linked to the same entity item. So for example, you can have a single requirement, but at the same time, you have multiple tasks all linked to the same item and assigned to different people, asking them to do different things. And that is a big difference between Kovair and other tools, which are typically a state-based system. In a state-based system, an item can be in one state alone at any point of time, which means you can do one thing at a time for that particular item. In a task-based system, you can do simultaneously many things parallelly. So here, in the task page, which is Mary's kind of my task page, these are all these different tasks assigned to Mary, and it may be Mary and other people also, as you can see here, and they may be coming from different workspaces. So here in the column, you can see that they are coming from different workspaces. Our activities are different, so basically Mary needs to do different kinds of things for each one of them. Now look at the very top one here. So here's a task which is related to the same requirement which we just submitted, assigned to Atanu, Mary, and Sky, and asking them to review this. So let me go to that task quickly. So go to that task. It shows that this is actually linked to my requirement, right? This is the same requirement, and we need to review it. And Atanu, Mary, and Sky are the owner here. So now what Mary needs to do, first of all, she needs to actually link some functional requirements to this. So this is classic decomposition of requirement. I have a high-level customer requirement, and I'm just relating, or I'm linking some of the function requirements which need to be implemented to address or to fulfill that particular customer requirement. So I create one here, but I can also go to the relate existing and relate some of the function or link some of the functional requirements here. So let me filter it for functional requirements only, and let's look at some of these requirements. So let's see. I've got see that these are the functional requirements. They are shown with all the kind of graphics and all the text and everything. So that's what we call the document view. Okay, so these are requirements. So let me just select a couple of them here. So I'm just selecting 198 and 196, let's say. Okay, and we are done. So now we linked two functional requirements here. So those are shown here, 198 and 96. And one more thing we need to do is that Mary knows that what are the different projects it's running, so she can say these are the different projects, and this particular customer requirement belongs to, let's say, this restaurant reservation system. And so there are three, you remember that she needs to review it, and finally she needs to say whether it's approved, or she can send it back for more info, or she can reject it. So let's say she approves it, okay? And let's hit it. And as Mary is concerned, she's done with this task. Now she can say, complete the task. And when she completes the task, that particular task is now gone from her task page. See that that task is no more there. That's actually a very important point, which basically means that as far as Mary is concerned, she doesn't know really where is it going to, this requirement, once she has completed her task, or where did it come from. Because there is a process actually running in the background, which is moving it from person to person or from state to state. But that process is completely transparent to the end users like Mary. But for benefit, let me open the hood and let's look at what is that process which is really driving it. See the requirements tab here, and here's the list of all these different requirements, and this one we have submitted, right? And now it has gone to Ted and Tammy for associate test cases and Archie for associate design elements. So look at that particular process which is really running here, and we're going to our process designer here. And if we look at this one, this is just like Visio. We're very usually drag and drop, but unlike Visio, which is just a drawing program, we have got a lot of logic behind each of this node. So when the requirement started, it started from the start node, went to the reviewers for review. That was our Mary, Sky, and Atanu, and Mary took it and completed it. That's why it is green. Now, since she approved it, it went to these two nodes and asked architect, which is Archie, for associate design elements, and test, which is Tammy and Ted, asking to associate test cases. Now, here's that important point I was trying to make, is that Kovair being a task-based system, you can actually have multiple parallel activities for the item. Right? Here we see that there are two independent kind of activities going on. If you had a state-based system, we have to do it like this, one after another. And as you can very well expect, in that case, overall time will be much more cycle time, and you won't be able to do many of the things which we do in real life, all the parallel things. Okay? So that is the kind of a little introduction of process. I don't want to go into any more detail than that at this point of time. Now let's go to some of our other tools for showing you how this integration actually works. So the next thing I'd like to do is go to RecPro, and for that I need to go to a different server here. Okay, so here is Requisite Pro. Okay, so let's go to the Requisite Pro, and I am logging in as Mark. And here is, for example, you see that here, CR73. So this is the same customer requirement we just submitted, and that got actually replicated in RecPro. Now, this is another very important point. You see that it does not replicate every requirement. It replicates only the requirements which are actually reviewed and approved. So this is an example of conditional replication from one tool to another tool. And you can actually create these kinds of conditions very easily using our interface, drag and drop interface. Okay? So the next thing I'd like to do is actually I want to create a new requirement in this particular functional requirement. I'll create a functional requirement and call it a functional requirement from RecPro. Okay? And let me just put this as a description here. And also, I'll put an attribute, let's say the priority, I'll make it high. And create a traceability. Traceability from the customer requirement, the same one, right, to these function requirements. So that is the traceability relation I just created from the replicated one to the new function requirements. As a matter of fact, if I go back to our customer requirement here, and you will see that this one is now linked to that function requirement. Okay, so I'm done as far as RecPro is concerned. So what we did is in RecPro we saw that our original customer requirement, which we submitted from the portal, is replicated. I created a new functional requirement and created a traceability relationship between the functional and customer requirement. Okay, so let me get out from here. Okay. All right. The next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to show you the quality center. Okay. So for quality center, I need to go to another tool actually, server. So this is a very good example of how these tools can be anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, we are working on 4 different servers. If you remember, the first corporate website was one server. The application, Kovair application, is running on the second server. Then we have just shown the RecPro in third server and QC in the fourth server. And they can be anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, they are running in different places in the world. Okay. Now, let me go to the quality center. So I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this one. So let's log in. Ted. Ted was one of our testers by the process, and now he's being asked to create a test case. So here, as you know, Quality Center has an object called the requirements. There are quite a few objects here: requirements, test plan, etc. So requirements here, we see the same requirement is also replicated to QC, the same kind of requirement here, right? So this is also by the same kind of condition, the same kind of logic as we have seen for RecPro, that when that customer requirement is approved, then it is replicated to Quality Center, and that actually makes sense. You don't want to kind of replicate all the requirements as they are getting going through the review and the approval process. Only those are approved. Now we want to create the test case for those requirements, right? So that's exactly what we'll be doing here. We'll go to the test plan and we'll create a test plan for that particular requirement. Okay, here is the test plan. Let's create new test. The test plan for QC. Okay. Okay. And so here it is. And we'll also add a design step here. Just one step will be okay. One. Result. Okay. And we'll create the requirement coverage, which is basically nothing but creating a traceability relation between this test case and our customer requirement. So let's go and drag and drop this customer requirement here. So that's the link. So if I go back to my requirement here and look at the test coverage, we should be able to see the newly created test plan we just created is now linked with this particular requirement. So we are done as far as this QC is concerned. So let me log out of here. So the thing I'd like to show you is we'll go to Eclipse. So let's go and open up Eclipse. Now here is an important kind of distinction I want to make with respect to our integration technology. So we have seen so far 3 kinds of integration, or rather 2 kinds of integration. One is we're using our corporate website. As a matter of fact, it's kind of one-way street. You just submit it, and the corporate website is not really having any kind of direct access or their own kind of repository. On the other hand, the RecPro and QC, they have got their own repository. So the adapters for QC and RecPro actually allows you to do that kind of replication or synchronization between that particular tool and Kovair. It can be also non-synchronized, but it can be federated. Federated means that in that particular case, the data is not replicated, but they are actually not, and they can be fetched from the other repository. But in the Eclipse, it's a little bit different. As a matter of fact, let me just disconnect this one. Eclipse has a plugin. We are not using any kind of data repository as far as Eclipse is concerned. So Eclipse is actually accessing Kovair data repository directly using our plugin, and plugin is, of course, using the API of Kovair. So, for example, if I connect here using, so Dave is our developer who uses Eclipse, and it uses the same kind of login user password, Kovair. So it actually connects to Kovair and gets those information here. For example, here is the Omnibus Explorer, where we can see all the different workspaces which Dave has access to, and the entities of these workspaces which Dave has access to. So for example, if we go to, let's say, tasks, so double click on tasks, that will show me the list of all the different tasks which are assigned to Dave. Just like we have seen for Mary, there is a My Task page, but now we are seeing everything from Eclipse, okay? So we can go to each individual one and kind of complete that if necessary. What we're really interested in is, let's go to the requirements here. So these are the same requirements which we have seen in Kovair, but of course we are seeing it from it. And here is our customer requirement, right? So let's go to the detail of that customer requirement. That actually opens up that customer requirement in a form. And interestingly, this form is actually designed and configured in Kovair using our drag and drop interface. But when they are rendered in Eclipse, they are shown as a native form in Eclipse. So this is actually a native form. This is not just an HTML form shown in Eclipse. These are real Eclipse forms. And all these different tabs, which are different sections in that form in Kovair. One of the tabs is the traceability. So if we do the traceability relation here, and here are all the traceability relations we have created so far. And let me just quickly go through them. First of all, there's 196, 198. These are the two functional requirements. Remember that Mary has linked with this particular customer requirement. So those are the two. And this is the project, restaurant reservation system, which Mary has linked to that. So these are all these three links which create in Kovair. Then you have the test plan, which created in QC and linked in QC, that is also available here, as well as the functional requirements, which was created in RecPro and linked in RecPro, that is also available here. So the point is that the users of Eclipse, they can actually access all functionalities of Kovair just sitting in Eclipse using our plugin. They don't have to actually come out of Eclipse and log in using a browser to Kovair. Everything is available from there with all the links and everything. Okay, so that was as far as the Eclipse is concerned. Now let's go to Visual Studio. Okay, so let me close this one. The Visual Studio is, where is the Visual Studio? Here we go. The Visual Studio is very similar to Eclipse. We have a plugin for Visual Studio. And here also, as you can see, we have a menu called Omnibus, and we can connect, and we'll connect as David here. And here also it is shown as a different kind of link here, Explorer, but very similar to Eclipse, but style and everything is native to Visual Studio. So let me, for example, show the test cases. So from here, if I go to the test cases, I'm able to see all those test cases. So let me go. Here is the same test case we created from QC that is now available from Visual Studio. So just like any other entity, that is also available. So for example, task and everything else will be also available. Now let me go to the Team Explorer. So as you know, that Visual Studio also has this TS, so we can go to the Team Explorer. And in the Team Explorer, if we go to the work items, and let's go to the team queries to see all requirements. As a matter of fact, we are doing two things in Visual Studio. It's a special thing. One is just Eclipse, the requirements are available here, but at the same time, we are also replicating the requirement as a work item in TFS. So, for example, here is our element, right, which we tracking, started from its corporate website. That's also now replicated in TFS as a work item, right? You can see the same thing using the Kovair Explorer using this requirement list, but you can also see it as part of the work item. I want to show it as a part of the work item because I want to also use TFS as a configuration management system, right? The next thing I'd like to do is basically go to the source control, right? So here's source control, and let me just expand this one. All right, so we have quite a file here. So let me just select one of these files. Okay, so this one, let me just double that. So we say that source code for integration of tools. Okay. So it's 15, right? Now let me right click that and let me add it to our pending change set. Okay. Now here, I have an option here. So this is a script 15. I can actually link it to work item, right? So let's go to the work item, and here is the same requirement number 66, right? So the same one. So make it a little bigger here. Okay, so you can see it here. This is the same work item, which is nothing but the replication from our requirement, right? So what I did is that I'm now checking in. I've linked it to my work item. So let me just check in. So script 15 is checked in. So if I go to history here, that shows me this actually has created a change set number 21, right? So that is how TFS does it, and I know that both of you are much more familiar with TFS than me. I'm not a regular user of TFS, but so what we have done in TFS is basically we saw that our requirement is replicated back in TFS. So we have our source file, and we actually changed that source file and also linked it to the same work item, which is nothing but the replication of our requirement. So as Visual Studio is concerned, we are done here. So now let's go back to Kovair. So to the Kovair, and let me go back to our layer, and let's go to, not our function requirement, but let's go to the customer requirement. So there, first of all, what I'd like to show you is, for example, here we have the linked requirements. So these are different traceability relations. We can see everything in a single place. So we've got two functional requirements, and then the third one, which is nothing but the RecPro function requirement, right? So we can see it. Then the link test case, which is actually coming from Quality Center. So here is the test plan from QC. That's also we see in the same place. Then we link change sets. Oh, this actually, I'm sorry. This is not the same change set. This is the subversion change set. Is the TFS change set. Remember that we have the change set number 21, which has been created TFS. So really what happened that now we have got our change set number 21, which is replicated from TFS to here. So we actually have our entity called the TFS change set, and that has been created, and that is also linked to the same requirement. And how did it happen? Because that change set was created in TFS, and by our actor, it not only replicated to Kovair, also it made a link with that particular requirement. Okay. So, now let me also show that if rather than seeing it in a textual manner, we actually have a graphical way of looking at all these different relationships, though all the data are coming from different sources. So this is the network diagram of all these different relationships. So let me make it a little bigger here. Okay, so here, as you can see, this is our requirement, right? This is related to the project. This is one relationship. This is related to the TFS change set number 1, right? Then it is related to these two function requirements. This is the requirement from Pro, right? And this is a test plan from QC. So all of these relations are shown here. Now, if we expand this TC14, which is basically the chain set number 21, now it also shows, for example, the source code that's created. So I can go to the record here, view record, and look at that particular source file as well. So this is the source file. And if I go to the file content here, that can actually show me that file content. And this is, as a matter of fact, this showing, this is an example of a federated one. So this is the same one, right? We remember I entered that text here. So this is a federated one. As a matter of fact, the source code which are under TFS, they are not getting replicated in Kovair. We are getting that content on demand. So when I click here in the file content, it actually goes to TFS, asks for the file content, and gets the file content to show you. So this example of the federated one, whereas I have already shown you some of the other ones, which is a synchronized one based on the replication between the tools. Okay, there are a couple of other ways also looking at the whole traceability kind of hierarchy here with all different data coming from different tools. So if you look at it here, let's say that we have got the project number 1, which is the restaurant reservation system, right? We have the customer requirement here, right? The very top one. We expand that. That gives me all the other items which are related to this customer requirement. So here are the functional requirements. So two of them are function requirements from Kovair, and the third one is a function requirement from Rec Pro, right? And here a test case, which is from QC, and here is the chain set number 21, which is from TFS. So if I expand that also shows me for example, the actual file which is related to this particular chain set. So here's an example of the report you can think of, where we have the hierarchy of all these different relationships and the different artifacts, though they're actually coming from different tools. So this is a very good example of a consolidated reporting, synchronized reporting of all these different information from different tools. Okay. Now, the last thing I'd like to show you about the report is we have a number of different kinds of reporting engines. So we have HTML. You have already seen that. We have the XML. As a matter of fact, if we go to, for a second, go to any kind of list here, we can, as a matter of fact, export that to Word, Excel, PDF, etc. So any of these, let's say this traceability relationship or the report, you can directly export to Excel or Word, etc. But we also have some interesting other report. One is a Crystal report with a built-in Crystal kind of runtime, so that by drag and drop you can create those reports, and actually many of these reports come a dashboard as well. And also we have got a Word document generator. So let's look at that. That's actually a very interesting one. So here is we have a plugin for Microsoft Word using which you can create a Word template and embed a number of different data coming from Kovair. Okay, you have a complete flexibility of using all the formatting capability of Word, so that you have a very, very nicely formatted document, but all the data coming from Kovair. So this is actually generating on real time Word document. So let's look at
for particular functionality. Where does the Word live? Does it live on the server, or does the client and then generate it?
You are actually the plugin for the Word is installed on the client. That means on your laptop.
Right. Is there anything on the server from Word? Do I have to have Word on the server at all?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So is the Word document, right? As you can see that this has got a nice formatting, and you have the complete flexibility. Here's a table of contents. So let me just regenerate for updating the page numbers. If you look at the number 4 here, so this is the customer requirement, the same one. Under we have the 3 function requirements, right? And then we have the change set. Under that we have the script file, all the file history. Here is the test plan for QC with the design steps, everything. So all the things we have done here, they are now in this particular document. So as a matter of fact, let me go to the individual. So here, customer request with all the different attributes, right? So for example, remember that I made the priority as high. So there is the function requirement, the function requirement from RecPro, right? This is linked to that customer requirement. And these are the two function requirements which are linked from Kovair, right? And here is a TFS change set. Here is a TFS script file, the detail of that, history of that file. Okay. Now, if I have multiple kind of time I've checked in, checked out, change, and other things, so all of those will come as a part of the history. Then we have the test case, which is from QC with its design state, right? So all of these things are now in Microsoft Word, and once again, as you can see, the data coming from different sources, but you can nicely format and create a nice report by that. One thing I'd like to show you is the dashboard, and there is a special dashboard we have. So close this one. So here is one dashboard. Mentioned that we can have multiple dashboards. For example, here is a dashboard which is based on, let's say, this one is the code coverage, right? So since we have actually linked a code file with this particular requirement, now it is code coverage is covered, it shows my requirement, right? So this is a very, I think it's an important kind of way to look at this thing. So I can look those things directly from the dashboard. Now for the QA, similarly you can run test coverage one. Or for example, here is a test coverage by covered. So since I created a test case and linked it with that particular requirement, that's why that requirement now comes under the test coverage is covered, right? Here is also the test by the run status. So since we have not run that particular test case, that's why I think it will come under the run status no run. So let me just quickly look at that. Yes. So none, so this one has not been run, so that's why it comes under not run. Okay. So this is a kind of, you can create these kinds of dashboard for each of the individual users or group of users, and they can choose whatever dashboard they would like to see. Now, this kind of completes my my demonstration, whatever I wanted to show. Let's open it for a Q&A, and I would be very happy to answer. Actually, Atanu is here, so if you have any technical question about the architecture, about the how we have implemented, etc., we'll be very happy to answer those.
So all of these replications you've got going back and forth between all the systems, how are you handling complex or custom workflows in each one of those systems? So, for example, TFS is highly customized. We've got field level permissions all over. We've got custom controls. We've got custom workflows. And replicating, say, a requirement out there into Requisite Pro, how are you enforcing the rule? If I've got a rule in TFS that says, you know, only Joe can edit these 3 fields, how are you enforcing that over in Requisite Pro?
So Atanu answer that question.
Yes. So we basically kind of there is in Kovair kind of some configuration, like say when you are setting up these workflows from setting up these service flows from Kovair to TFS, you can kind of create the entity mapping that which fields from Kovair would map to the TFS fields. And then just what we do is we just replicate that particular requirement in TFS, and once it's in TFS as a work item, then automatically you would follow all the rules that you have set it up for in your customer system. And
right,
also,
but you have two-way synchronization, right? So now if I go over in one system and edit it, so essentially, do I have to replicate the rules? If I've got something that I'm synchronizing across, say, TFS to ClearQuest, TFS to Requisite Pro, Clarity to TFS, whatever it is, do I replicate my rules in both systems if I'm just because all you're doing is synchronizing the data back and forth, right? You're not enforcing a rule on either end.
No. Yes.
Okay.
And also one other thing is, like say, in custom entities, the custom templates that you create as a part of your TFS customizations, any workflows and stuff, so that is basically can be exposed. So it is automatically exposed. So if you have, let's say, created some more work item types in your TFS, so that automatically exposed all the custom fields that you create that are automatically exposed, that you can kind of create mapping to the Kovair fields or mapping to your RecPro fields or Quantum fields.
Well, I assumed that you could handle custom fields. I was just asking if you could handle custom workflow and rules around all those fields, because that's I've seen this in the past where I've tried to connect, say, Quality Center and TFS together, and I've worked. We had a very, very it's not the right word, a very, very complex workflow in Quality Center that TFS could not replicate. So we ended up with one-way synchronization of developers to attach work items into their check-ins so we could get traceability, but we didn't allow. We forced them back out of the tool, and so if you guys had figured out a way to solve that, I would see that being a real key issue for us, because our workflow inside of our TFS is customized to the point that I'm 100% sure we could replicate somewhere else.
Yeah, I think basically you can continue to use that particular workflow which you have defined in TFS. So from Kovair's point of view, I think the way we look at that particular workflow is basically a set of custom or other fields, and I think you have the reason and the state kind of thing. So define your own set of reasons and state. But those, from Kovair's point of view, is a set of fields and the values. So what you are changing in TFS can be replicated back in Kovair and to other tools if necessary, which has got a corresponding field and corresponding values.
It'd only be one directional right into Kovair then, because I would want to lock Kovair out from or Requisite Pro or whatever. I want my user changing that value there because it breaks my rule in TFS, for example. Yeah.
Absolutely. You can buy the access right in Kovair. You can stop people to change those values. Those values will be only changed in TFS, right? So they won't be changed in Kovair. And the same thing is true for the other tools. Obviously, depends on the other tool's capability. If the other tool does not allow kind of field-based or field-by-field access right, then of course you are kind of out of luck. You won't be able to kind of change it. But what you can do, that even if they change it, that will not be replicated back. Right? They can well change in
right, that's even a bigger problem, because then I have essentially two different words, for a lack of a better term, one in System A, one in System B, and now I've got two different sets of values. That's completely worthless at that point, because now who's my system of record, right? Because in reality, I need a system of record here that says this is the one that's always correct, regardless of if my replication fails, if something fails, then I need this system to always be the one that in the end wins, right? Winner.
So you can have the TFS as a master, right? So everybody else is a kind of slave to that. And only master changes, the slaves are changed. If somebody tries to change the slave, that will affect the master or any other slave.
But what you're saying, though, is I can them change it and then let them change the value in the slave. Well, now if you've got a group of users that only look at the slave and another group of users that look at the master, then they're talking two different languages. So yeah. I can't ever let them change in the slave. The slave has to be locked up.
Okay, right? So understand that. As a part of your workflow, what you are saying, say for a particular field in TFS, what you have said is you will not allow the field to be changed by a particular user. You are saying.
That's one example. We've got a lot of customized workflow in tests, and what I was just trying to figure out. My original question was, do you guys have a way that you can mimic a flow across multiple tools? Like I said, so my example before was I wrote a synchronizer that would go between TFS and Quality Center, or Quality TFS, and could not replicate the complexity of the workflow. Since you can use that VB scripting engine over in Quality Center to control the defect, you cannot get to the level of detail over in TFS. You just can't do it.
Yes. Yes.
So the question was, have you guys figured out a way around that so that the user have to? So as an end user of Kovair's product, do I still have to go off and, if I want both those products to be bidirectional sync where I can edit in either place, and have to replicate my rules? And what I'm hearing is I have to still replicate my rules so that if I've got a rule that says, can't change field A unless field B is changed in Quality Center, then I have the same rule. I have to write the same rule into a TFS, because all you're doing is taking field 1, field 2, field 3, and pushing them over to field 1, field 2, field 3 in the other tool. You're just watching for change.
Yeah. Also, there could be transformations, like you can have kind of complex transformation, like in Reg Pro. I want to basically merge these two fields together and then put it there, or some kind of calculation and things like that. But also, see, like in TFS, workflows are in a structured way. Okay, so the workflows, we basically take it out from TFS and push it to Kovair, because in Kovair also these workflows are in a structured way, so that we can map. But like say in Quality Center and other places where the workflows are not structured, in means that, as you were saying, that it can be done in scripting and things like that, those places we will not have any kind of way to basically get as a structure and push it to other tools.
Okay.
All right. One other thing I wanted to show you is, for example, remember that we are talking about the replication. So you can create the replication rules here. So where is that if the requirement type is customer, so a customer requirement, when the status changes to approve, and the actions are basically at the same time we are replicating to Visit Pro, QC, SharePoint, Perforce, TFS simultaneously, all of them together in a single rule.
So when you go to these tools, are you going straight against their databases, or are you going through their APIs so that you don't muck with the data?
Yeah, we basically have web services adapter that are built on top of the APIs. The APIs are available.
Okay.
In some cases, in some homegrown tools and things like that, of course, they may not have an API. In that case, we have to go directly to the database.
Right. For example, so within Linux Change and Records Pro, then are you guys watching some sort of trigger there to tell you that something changed, since there's no eventing model off that tool? How do you know something changed?
Yes, that exactly. We are kind of polling the event, we kind of find those events and then collecting at the level, and then the Omnibus engine at a frequency interval is kind of pulling those events and then processing it as per your the service flows and the conditions that you have set.
Okay, and then, so with any data, are you using TFS's warehouse, or are you using the regular relational stores?
TFS warehouse, you were saying?
So when you're doing any of this data, are you using the warehouse with TFS, or are you using the relational storage?
Storage.
And how do you have a TFS 2010 version of this thing built?
Currently, it is TFS 2008. So
you have the beta version of 2010?
Yeah, so we actually looking at 2010. Generally, it doesn't require that much of a change.
They've totally changed the schema. It's nowhere near what it was. I mean, day.
Yeah. So, but generally, what we do is we generally expose a product. How we create the adapters. So these adapters are very thin. We do not put any kind of the configuration or business rules parts into the adapters. That is just exposing the objects that are contained in that particular tool, their events, their attributes, and the actions that you can operate on all those objects. That's a kind of the uniform way we bring an adapter on any of the tools. As if they change the underlying API drastically, then there is we need to change. But like for Quality Center, as we moved from version to version for the last 2-3 versions, we didn't require much of a change. And generally, for 3-4 items, like for this TFS adapter, we built within a month of, actually it takes 4 to 6 weeks of kind of man weeks of development for an adapter which will contain, let's say, 3-4 objects.
I have a question.
Yes, yeah.
Because the question that Chris asked, he kind of, triggered some thinking on my end. Do you have the ability to have some systems be bidirectional with each other and other systems be monodirectional? And can that be defined based on event?
Absolutely. As a matter of that is the one I'm looking at here. Answer is yes. What you can do, let me give you an example. So let's say you're using two different requirements management tools. You're using RecPro, and let's say you're using Doors. Okay. And you have the business rule that the customer requirements will come from RecPro to Doors, but functional requirements will come from Doors to RecPro, but not vice versa. So you can actually create those kinds of service flow, and what we call service flow, you have conditions. So you can say that if the requirement type is customer and it is the origination is from RecPro, then action is you can replicate in Doors, and then you can have another service flow where you can actually define that. So basically, we have separated out these kinds of business logic from the adapter. So as Atanu was saying, the adapter is actually very thin, so it just exposes only the data layer. But all these kinds of business rules, when it will happen, how it will happen, whether you need some kind of data transformation, those things are all defined in this interface and on the fly, basically, and manage it without touching that adapter. Answer your question, Jen?
Perfect, thanks.
Any other question? Christopher Sire is still there?
Yes, I'm here. I don't have
okay. Okay. All right.
What were the different things you could export to? Sorry. You saw PDF, Word, what else?
Oh, Excel, Word, PDF. Then you have the Crystal, HTML, of course.
Okay. Yeah, just curious.
Any other question? So what I'll do also that I've got this recorded. So Jan, I'll send it to you, and possibly since Christopher Work could not join today, I want to send it to him. Or if you want another demo for others, we'd be very happy to do that also.
That would be fabulous, Sky. I really appreciate the recording, and I will certainly pass that along to Christopher Rourke. That's a really good idea. We will want to set up a subsequent demo, but I'm not sure what our timing needs to look like. Because remember, we wanted to give you enough information around clarity so that you could incorporate that into your demonstration. And so I'm waiting on legal to tell me that we're completely blessed with the NDA. And then, of course, I have to get you that information that you need on the way our clarity environment is structured.
So, this is Mike. Is that was Clarity TFS integration, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is actually a project that I'm managing that's currently in flight. And so as soon as I hear back from legal and I can pass that clarity information on to you and we can get some agreement on how much time you need before we can incorporate that into a demonstration, then we can schedule the next demo, which would include Victoria Balyanek and our vice president for this department, who is Heather Brooks.
Very good. All right, so anything else do you want to see? Any question? Both Chris?
No.
Do you get any kind of open issues in your mind in terms of how the interface works in terms of your customization? I think you were kind of getting into some questions there, and I want to make sure that the way they've laid the interface that would be functional for what you're looking for, or if there's some gaps that may need to be filled there.
I think I'm all right.
Okay.
Mike, I think we have a much better understanding of the capabilities of the product, and we have some ideas around how we could manage through some of the issues that we talked about. So I don't think any of those are showstoppers. We're a little disappointed that we're going to have a lot of data replication, more disk, but I think that that's just a given based upon the nature of technology and technical capabilities at this point. So like I said, I don't believe right now we've encountered any showstoppers, and we're still on track. And I will be pinging our legal department this afternoon to try and get an answer on the status of our NDA and take it from there.
Sounds really good. All right.
All right.
Well, thanks everybody. Thank you very much to everyone, and then we'll get that as soon as we get that link. That out to you as well for the recording.
Great,
Thank
Guy. Good job on talking so fast. You crammed 90 minutes into 60 minutes just the way I wanted you to.
Yes. My big concern that how much I can show you within this time period. But thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Alrighty. Bye-bye.